The Zoom meeting is not in the live, so let me go ahead and add that. Yay! That's funny, because that was crazy. It didn't work there for a second, but I fixed it. And hopefully everyone can hear me. If you can't, please tell me in the chat, because we've had that problem before. But either way, welcome to SciComm Happy Hour. We postponed for a couple of weeks due to the socio-political issues going on in the United States. Those are still going on. They will continue to go on. But we wanted to get together and continue to talk about nerdiness, because that's still important in the world. So I am Trace. This is my channel. KISHORE and BOBAK will not be here this week, but we've got two amazing guests. Over here on my side is Allie. Hi, Allie. Calling from Tokyo.
Yeah, good morning for me, I guess. Hi, I'm Allie. I am a producer and host of the show BOBAK, which airs in Japan on the Discovery Channel YouTube channel, which was also just happens to be inspired by Seeker/G News, which was produced and hosted by the person on my, I guess, right, Trace Dominguez. And before I did that, I used to work heavily in the YouTube world, doing a lot of producing, a lot of consulting. And then before that, I did have actually a lot of nerd cred because I started my career off as an Oracle database engineer, tuning databases and implementing them and upgrading them and doing a lot of backup recovery. And that was a thing.
Whoa.
And also, I'm a big Star Wars fan, if you can't already tell. So.
I can tell. I have a space shirt on too, but mine is about Mars because I released a video about Mars today. Yeah. So I figured why not?
That's true. So I guess I am wearing a space shirt.
All right. What about you? What about you, Vanessa? Tell everybody about you.
First of all, my name is Vanessa. I have a YouTube channel that is called Braincraft that Trace has been on before, so I hope you have heard of it. I'm wearing a onesie, a jumpsuit that is covered in dogs. I also enjoy Mars and Star Wars, but I would say that dogs are like my number one above both of those things. I've had Braincraft for six years, like almost 7 years old this year. So I have been doing that for what feels like forever in YouTube years. I'm like a YouTube grandma over here. And alongside that, I have made some other science media, I would say, like documentaries. I made a series for PBS for a while. So all of us here are science media folks, because science communication, I'm sure as the frequent SciComm happy hour crowd would know, is very wide, right? Like it can involve science policy and education and all kinds of other stuff, but we're all science media folks here. Nice to be among company.
That's true. I didn't even think about that we are kind of all science media people.
Yeah.
We all came from a very similar path, whereas normally there are people from academia and people from nonprofit and people from corporate, and but we all came up in the like, I like media things. Oh, science ones are fun. Like, let's do that. That
was my whole thought process in my degree. That was all I thought. That was it. Just that one thought.
Be like, I like sciencey things. That'll do.
Media is fun.
Media is fun. It is fun. I mean, it can be fun.
Great.
It can also be a lot of work.
It's a lot more work than it seems, actually.
Yeah.
Which is something that I've discovered, I've been reminded of in a new format that I have been trying lately that I thought would be easy. And then I was like, oh, this is actually quite difficult.
Yeah.
And that is TikTok.
Oh.
It's just very time consuming. And yeah, I thought it would be easy to create TikToks, and it's not as easy as it may seem.
You fell victim to one of the classic blunders.
I know.
Thinking that a job is easy.
Yes. Just Vanessa and the planning fallacy. My journey through time.
Is that the name of your new paper?
Yeah, that's my autobiography. I've just started penning it right now.
I will be the first to read it.
Thank you, Allie.
So each week we get together and we talk about nerdy stuff. And I want to start this week because I want to get this. This I think feels to me a little bit more of a harder topic to end on. So I wanted to go first, if that's okay with you guys. What do you think?
Yeah. This is your live stream, Trace. Even though I'm very invested in this live stream, as we know, this is my second appearance.
Yes.
The last time, can I just say, I was do you remember I was wearing a hat because my hair was so dirty that I just couldn't even appear. But I'll stop hijacking your live stream now and just let you do your thing. Okay?
You were also late, as I recall, last time. So you're doing much better this time. Just in general.
Really have my stuff together in life a lot more now than I did in May or April or whenever it was.
Sometime earlier in 2020. So something that I was thinking about over the last couple of weeks, aside from Black Lives Mattering, which is very important, and protesting being patriotic, and also, trans women are women, and a variety of other things that have been churned up right now, like some crazy sea foam, is in these protests, there's been a lot of tear gas usage, and it's something that the last time we had mass protests in the United States and there was a lot of tear gas usage, I thought it would be really interesting to learn more about it. So I made some notes and I put them aside and then ended up moving on and doing other things like a lot of people did. And so I thought I would talk a little bit just briefly about tear gas and what it is and how it works. So it was invented by a couple of scientists in the 1920s, which is pretty interesting. And it's considered what's called a lacrimator compound. It's either a solid powder or a liquid aerosolized and then spread over large areas. And it's a lacrimator compound essentially means that it makes your tear ducts irritated and that makes them flow. Yeah.
So I have a question. Is this the same as pepper spray?
It is not the same. But
okay.
they are both lacrimator compounds, but they are not the same thing. So that's a great question. I'm glad you asked because pepper spray is literally based on the same thing as pepper. Like it's made of like spiciness. Think of it as made of spiciness, which is why you see people pouring milk on their faces because the milk will bind with the capsaicin and then end up washing it out. That doesn't work with tear gas. So when people get tear gassed and pour milk on their faces, it might not, studies seem to show it doesn't actually do anything for the tear gas. And instead it might just be like the cooling liquid itself being nice. But the milk isn't going to stop it the way it stops pepper spray. So essentially what this compound does, and I say compound because I'm not saying the names of them necessarily because there are a bunch of different ones. There's CS, CN, PS, CA, and CR. The first one was CS, and it was named for like the initials of the two guys that invented it. But it's chlorobenzidine malonitrile. I don't know. I'd have to practice saying it a few times.
That's an excellent pronunciation.
Thank you. I'm very good at this. I've been doing it a long time. So CS is what is commonly used, and it was started to be used for riot control in the 1950s, late 1950s. I wonder what was going on in the U.S. about then. So what you're supposed to do if you get tear gassed, and this is the good takeaway information. First, flush your eyes with liquid. Water is really good. Make sure you remove your contacts, blow your nose and spit out of your mouth and like try and get any chemicals that may have been in your mouth. Think of it like a powder. So imagine a big cloud of powder. If it gets in your face and gets in your mouth, you got to get it out. And just to FYI in the Twitch, somebody's asking what we're talking about. We're talking about tear gas. We're starting out with that. So get it out of your eyes, get it out of your mouth. Because what it's going to try and do is irritate your mucous membranes, and it's going to be very uncomfortable. And you have a lot of those in your eyes and mouth. So then it also the recommendation is also to take a cold shower because a hot shower will open up your pores and make it worse. So take a cold shower. You have to change your clothes, obviously, but when you go to take off your clothes, don't pull them over your head because remember, think of it like a powder. So if you have it on your shirt and you pull it over your head, you're just putting more into your mucous membranes. So I would imagine you could maybe like try and carefully come it off, but they actually said the best thing to do is cut your clothing off if you've been like heavily tear gassed. And then on top of that, don't put those clothes on anything that's made of fabric, like a couch or your carpet, because those things can then be saturated with that powder or that liquid, and then it ends up having all sorts of issues there, and it can get in there. And then also, if you need to wipe off your skin, like if you can't, say, take a shower right now, use a towel saturated in canola oil, and then immediately wipe down your skin with another towel saturated in rubbing alcohol. Tear gas.
So
Sucks.
if you were going out to protest, it might be useful to pack like a gym towel soaked in oil, and then another towel soaked in alcohol in like a Ziploc bag or something.
Yeah.
Put them in your backpack.
You could have a towel soaked in like a canola oil to wipe down with. You could also have then like just sanitized alcohol wipes to like
Sure.
So that way, but that would be a really good kit to have. And yes, you could also bring cold water. That's going to help and get it out of your eyes and out of your nose and mouth and like wash your mouth out. But it's a pretty serious thing, and it's been around, like I said, now for almost 100 years, and we've been using it for, and people have been using it for riot control since the 1950s. And if you're still experiencing problems, what it's supposed to do is cause people to want to leave the area. Right? That's the whole point. It's supposed to get people away from stuff, right? That's the point of it being used. That's not the point of the invention. I couldn't really find out why they had invented it. But
I have two questions.
Yeah.
Where was this invented?
It was invented in a chem lab in the US.
In the US.
Yeah.
Has it been used in any wars? Like, do you think it was developed for warfare?
I think the only thing I know is that it was used for riot control in the late 1950s. I imagine it's not really rated for use in war because it's not great. Like, you can use it in war, but it's considered chemical warfare because it's a chemical that gets into your and causes problems. It's a non-lethal chemical warfare. And so it's probably got some rules as to how it can be used in war, but it's mostly used, as Technophile just points out in the chat, it's used in warfare training. I did read that they use it to test the speed to which you can get your gas mask on. So imagine you had a chemical warfare issue with a lethal chemical. This is a way to test how fast you can get your gas mask on and make sure that you've secured it properly in training. And do that again and again and again, and you'll know if you don't get it, because this stuff is very, very irritating. Yeah.
Irritable is...
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever want to do that training. That sounds like pretty horrible training.
Yeah. Well, they said after about 30 minutes, it's supposed to go away, although some people don't have that. After 30 minutes, you're supposed to be okay. If you're still struggling to breathe or you're still experiencing things like blurred vision, you should go get medical care. If you can't afford medical care or can't get to medical care, what I'm going to say is there are plenty of community health centers that can help. If you're near a protest, there's always going to be some support there to help. And there's those community health centers are federally funded. So if you're protesting the government and then go to a community health center, it's almost like you're doing double duty there. So nice job.
Trace, I think you need to make like a protest science version kit of like what you need when you go out and protest. Because I think there are a lot of people, highlighting what you need to bring, or like don't bring your phone or like a new SIM card, and then you can do a science version of it. Maybe that would be useful.
That could be cool. I'm going to make a note. Science kit for protests. Cool. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. It was something that I was reading a lot about because I didn't know, turns out, that much about tear gas. I thought it was the same as pepper spray.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of different types.
It sounds like the effects don't last as long as pepper spray. Is that right?
I don't know. 30 minutes seems like a long time to be extremely uncomfortable. And
it really does. Yeah.
Like, have you ever been drunk and you're like, I don't want to be drunk anymore? If you had to be drunk for another 30 minutes, you'd be really upset. And this is
feels like a really
worse.
long time. Yeah.
Yeah, but what is 30 minutes when you're drunk, though, right?
Yeah. I guess. This is much worse.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
On that down note, I do want to say that, while we do take what's happening in the world seriously, we also recognize that part of our jobs is to talk about things that aren't just going on in the world. So with that in mind, Allie, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about why humans drink alcohol at one point.
Oh, sure. No, I was actually, is my audio better, by the way? I just saw in the chat that people couldn't hear me as well.
I clicked a couple buttons and they said it's much better now. And then you changed your headset, so it's nice.
Yeah, I changed my headset, so now I look like I'm taking orders from a drive-thru. So if anyone wants anything, you just let me know. But do tell me if the audio is a little bit better. But yeah, no, I thought I was going to talk about what's kind of going on here on this island country of Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Which I can kind of touch upon. It's, don't worry, it's not as depressing. Sorry if it's sake of my vocabulary, my lack thereof. But yeah, no, Japan's doing okay, I think. I think the country invested a lot of time and money into the Olympics that were supposed to be happening next month.
Wow, I had forgotten about the Olympics.
Yeah.
When
no,
are they just going to be cancelled altogether?
They're being postponed, right?
Until next year?
So officially it's been postponed until next summer. There have been talks of the IOC canceling it. What's happening? It was all over Twitter yesterday because one of the news outlets said that the IOC canceled it. It's not canceled, it's canceled. No one knows officially what's going on. But Japan's gone all in with the Olympics. So it's scary. It's very, very scary for people and us in the media. It's scary I also do event emceeing on the side as well. And so I do work a lot in the sports industry. And so that's terrifying to me as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we've invested, my husband is in tourism, and there are exactly like 100 tourists in the country right now. So
yeah,
so it's pretty daunting. So that aspect of it is pretty scary.
I'm so curious that we're all in different big cities at the moment. I'm in New York, you're in Tokyo, Trace is in Los Angeles. What's it like in Tokyo? Like, are people walking around outside? Are things opening back up? Like, can you go to a bar? Can you get a haircut? Like, what is the level of openness?
Yeah, so yes to all those questions. We're not on lockdown. Tokyo's actually never been in lockdown. Japan's never been in lockdown because of certain laws. Like, the government can't enforce a official lockdown. So even in May, April, when we were kind of in a self-isolation lockdown, like, people weren't really allowed to go outside, businesses weren't open, bars weren't open, or if they were only doing takeout beers. And you can drink on the streets here, so people were taking advantage of that. But bars are open past 8 now. Yeah, I don't think anything's really closed at the moment. So people are coming out of self-isolation, but I think the only difference right now is we're not really sure if we're allowed to see other people.
Right. I mean, I'm
kind of like
not that sure about that either myself.
Yeah, like, because that's not government enforced. No one really knows the answer. Like, even if I do see someone, I probably won't put it on the internet, like that sort of thing. Like, it's really weird.
Yeah.
So I think everyone's experiencing that right now. But aside from that, everything's open. Everyone wears a mask to begin with in this country. So I guess that's not really weird or new to us. Because
I have two more questions, because this has just turned into me interviewing you about your experience living in Japan right now. My first question is, do you think people in Japan or Asian countries are better at observing self-isolation and quarantine than those in Western countries like America? And is the healthcare system in Japan a government mandated system?
I love these questions. These are both really good.
Thank you. They're approved.
I'll answer the government mandated healthcare system question first. And no, it's not. It is privatized. But It's actually done very well. So the employment rate in Japan is extremely high. So most people do have just healthcare from their employer, and we only pay about 30% of what we actually need to pay. So it's privatized. Most people have a good enough job to be able to pay for it. And there is a government healthcare system if you aren't employed by a company. And that also works relatively well as well. I mean, that also means higher taxes, but it does work pretty well. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't left Tokyo.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it is privatized, but yes, it does exist. And to your other question on, do you think Asians are better at observing self-isolation? I don't want to generalize for all Asians, but what I can speak to is Japanese people. I think yes, because it is a rule-following society. Trace, you're laughing because you've been here, but it is, yeah. Like there's so many jokes to be made about Japanese people and how they follow all the rules, no matter how ludicrous they are. And part of that is true. I mean, there's stereotypes come from certain aspects of truth, and I would say, yeah, like Japanese people like rules, they like structure, and one of those is when someone tells you you can't go outside, you don't go outside. So yeah, I think people were very good at observing those rules.
I mean, that makes sense. I feel like do you think, I mean, Vanessa being a native of Australia, do you think Australia is good at following these kind of physical distancing, social isolation kind of protocols? Is it, I mean, New Zealand is now allegedly COVID free, they're reporting. So so we know that New Zealand has at least done some things.
Australia is pretty close to being COVID free. Like there's a handful of cases in the whole country, basically. And so generally, I think, say compared to America, I think Australians are probably a tiny bit better at observing the regulations. Like Australia is definitely more of a police state than the US is. Like there's so many, it's like, not at the level of Japan, but there are so many rules. Like especially now that I've lived in the US for some years, when I go back to Australia and I'm driving, there's so many signs everywhere. And it's like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. There's a fine for this, there's another fine for this, there's another fine for this, and then you can't find anywhere to park your car because nothing is allowed. Like there's just like, it just is so crazy how many rules there are. So people are a lot, and I mean, that's compared to America, but people are a lot more rule abiding, except it's not to say that they love having those rules. Like I think they would speak out a lot about them compared to someone who is Japanese. And from what I have seen in terms of friends and family and in the media in Australia, the quarantine has been followed, but not ideally. Like they had to close down a lot of beaches because they were still just packed with people. So I think the reason why Australia and New Zealand have done so well is because they had very tough border control. Like they closed their borders very quickly and wouldn't let anyone in. And they had a shutdown, and they have a very low population density and a lot more space, which is kind of the same thing as what I just said. But I think that, I think that is like a lot more outdoor space. So I think that is why it did so well.
And on top of that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on what I know of Australia, the population centers are more in very, very isolated places, right?
Definitely.
There's not a lot of people flying from Perth to Sydney every single day, all the time for business. Whereas in the US,
there's not a lot of hubs.
In the US, there's much more like interstate commerce and travel that's happening constantly, and with very like big groups, millions of people who are traveling like long distances regularly, and that's just not it's not the culture there. It's not the same there. Is that right?
Yeah, there's just not as much travel that you can do unless it's overseas. So everyone stopped doing overseas travel, and then there were some spikes in cases with people returning from overseas. But after that, like it died down pretty quickly, actually, because there was no other like routes of transmission that were possible at all. But the reason why I asked about the healthcare thing actually was this is, I know this is Science Communication Happy Hour, and this is a conspiracy theory. So I just want to flag that up front.
I love it. Thanks for flagging.
Yesterday, someone was comparing the policies in Canada and the United States, a friend of mine, and he said that in Canada, they have a much more strict lockdown, in part because it's a government mandated healthcare system. So if the government does a terrible lockdown and the same level of people come down with COVID as happened in the US, the government is up for an absolutely massive bill. So it's in the government's best interest, and all the provinces and the federal government in Canada, it's in everyone's best interest to have a stricter lockdown and to support industries with like bailout funds and grants and things like that, because it will still be less than what their healthcare bill would be. Whereas because in the US, it's a privatized system, the government really doesn't care as much about that financial burden because it's not passed on to them. It is in other ways, obviously, by like economic losses and things, like generally, except it's not a direct bill that the government has to pay for healthcare.
Interesting.
Yeah. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I wouldn't call that a conspiracy theory so much as like
a theory,
but also just like a way to think about priorities. Somebody I was talking to earlier, we were talking, I released a YouTube video this morning about living on Mars, and whether we could. And I talked to a couple of experts, and it's going very well. You can go find it on the channel after this is over, anybody who's watching. But one of the people was talking about taxes and how, I wish we would give more money to NASA, like we give more money to the military than NASA. And like the differences between the amount of money we give to the military and the amount of money we give to NASA isn't just like a couple of zeros. Like it's huge, multiple orders of magnitude, And so what I replied was something like the military, and then like a bunch of less thans, and then like NASA, and then a bunch more less thans, and then healthcare, mental health support, homelessness support. Like it's not even just that we're not giving much money to NASA. We're not giving much money to anything else relative to our military spending. We give most of our money to Social Security and the military, and the rest of the money is like split up in a very small bit.
It's a similar thinking behind the defund the police argument, which isn't like we don't get rid of the military. We just take half of that military spending, which is so much, and we have a better education system, and we have better social services and etc. Yeah. It's different because like the police have impacts in those areas and communities where the military don't. But yeah, it's kind of the idea of like just taking the top off that and redistributing it in ways that matter more to citizens. Yeah.
Well, and I think that might transition okay into what you kind of wanted to talk about on the happy hour as well, which is like originally you'd written down some. Yeah, well, I'll just let you take it away.
Well, I mean, I didn't do as much delightful preparation as my friend Trace Dominguez, who seemed to have a whole bunch of bullet points.
I did have some bullet points.
Yeah,
I love a good bullet point.
Communicating, like I just have some thoughts. Based on a conversation that Trace and I were having earlier in the week. So as we mentioned up top, we're all science media producers. So I get a lot of newsletters about what's happening in the documentary space and things like that. And for the past 3 months or 4 months, there has been a race to create the first documentary about COVID-19, about the coronavirus, like the history of it and where it came from. I mean, you can imagine it, like on the BBC or something like that, their 1 hour coronavirus documentary. Now, this was something that I was aware of. And then Trace and I were talking about science communication. And in science communication is something called the deficit model, which everyone loves to shit on, which is where you just present facts to people, basically. And something that's been really interesting about that is that I see these coronavirus documentaries as fitting into the deficit model, honestly, because everyone has so many questions about life in the age of COVID-19. Do I see people? How do I wash my hands? Do I need to wear a mask? Can the virus really transmit to other people from services? Like, can I touch elevator buttons and be okay? Do I need to wear gloves at the supermarket? Like, there's all of these questions that we have that truly impact our everyday life and our health that the BBC 1 hour documentary isn't going to answer, because it's going to go into the history of diseases coming from animals and what happened at the wet markets in Wuhan, China. And like, you can imagine the dumb voiceover that they're going to have like over these like, macro shots of bats and stuff like that. And, and that's what it's going to be. And we have a lot of friends. We're talking to one, Science Sam, who does a lot on Instagram. She very much recommend following her. But she has done a lot around the coronavirus. Like, her whole feed has been coronavirus for the past 4 months, and she's done some YouTube videos and stuff as well. But she was saying that it's been so valuable because everyone has so many questions. So when someone has a question, like, do I need to wash my groceries when I get home? She is able to answer how the virus could transmit on surfaces and what that means and all that kind of stuff. So it's actually been the best example for using social media for science communication and actually having a two-way conversation with your audience in a way that directly affects their health and well-being. So my question is, what is the value of the race to make the first coronavirus documentary? Like, why does that matter? Anyone at all?
No, I don't. I'm trying to think of why it would matter other than like,
I mean, other than numbers.
Yeah, other than like numbers and dick measuring and being like, we're the ones who made the first one, so when they start handing out awards, we can start getting the awards. I don't know. I think as SciComm media people, we're all probably, I'm going to speak for all three of us, a little jaded about some of the experiences coming out.
I'm jaded?
What? Coming out of the, like, because a lot of stuff gets made not because it's good, not because it's valuable, not because it's going to make people smarter or better. It gets made because of what Allie just said, numbers, or it gets made because of what you're saying, Vanessa, and that is being first. Like, that's it. I think
so. And I just think that we need to invest more, especially in areas of healthcare communication, in places where people can have a two-way conversation and actually answer people's questions.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. In the chat, Cirilio has just said, I'm a marketeer, which I think all marketers should now call themselves a marketeer.
Do they get a cool hat? Because I feel like you need a cool hat.
Totally.
You need like
I want to make a shirt that says that.
With a stripe on it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I like it.
Cirillo, I did ask a cool question earlier, and maybe you guys know a good answer. What are the good places to find statistics and research about incarceration, violence against other people, people who've been incarcerated for long periods of time? I imagine, like Allie being in Japan, are those kind of stats available? Like in the U.S., they are, but we'll come back to that. I kind of want to know more about Japan.
They're not unavailable. I don't think it's as easily accessible as they are in English-speaking countries. I generalize because, and this kind of goes into just SciComm in general in our market as well, because people aren't producing as many science education videos as they are in, say, Australia or in the US or in the UK. And part of that is because it takes a lot of time. Vanessa, you were kind of touching upon this in their last topic, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of research and a lot of fact checking. And it just hasn't become as popular. So I'm probably one of 3 YouTube channels in Japan that produce science content.
Wait, you have a YouTube channel?
Oh, no, I mean the Discovery Channel YouTube channel. That's the show I produce. But yeah, I'm one of maybe 3 that do it from scratch, not going off of a pre-made research paper or just kind of regurgitating information, like doing it from scratch, because as we all can attest to, like, it takes a lot of time
Yeah.
and a lot of energy. And sometimes you get, like 10, 20,000 views, which is not the equivalent of how much time you invest into creating that one video. I mean, we don't do it for the views, obviously, and that's why we keep doing it. But, that's part of the reason why. So to give you a long-winded answer to your question, yeah, it's available, but it's not as easily accessible just because not as many people access it.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've looked it up here for a variety of D-News videos and Seeker videos over the years, and there are a lot of stats available. There are the National Crime Statistics databases. There are the Bureau of Prisons is going to have a lot of information on incarceration. The thing is, though, because the U.S. is a collection of 50 states and a number of territories who all have their own systems of imprisonment, to get good data, you either have to go to a journalist who that's all they do is look at that shit, or you have to go to all 50 states and all of the territories and the District of Columbia and look at all of their bureaus of prisons, and not all of their websites are going to be the same, and like I've done some of this. Look, I would just avoid telling stories that were all 50 states plus territories, and instead just be like, based on this state, as opposed to like trying to generalize across the US, just because it can be very difficult, and that benefits a very small group of people in the federal government who don't want to be held accountable, or it can benefit like a corporate, or it can benefit a corporate or government contractor who doesn't want to be held accountable or doesn't want that information out there. Not necessarily just in prisons. I'm not trying to like shit on prisons necessarily, although, we do incarcerate more people in the United States per capita than any other country in the world.
Crazy.
And we actually also incarcerate more individuals than any other country in the world, including ones with 3 or 4 times our population. So, maybe we should work on that. But it's really tough. And so it's a good question, Cirilla. Where can you find good statistics and research? Universities and journalists, the people who live and breathe this shit, because they're the ones who have bookmarks of all 50 states and their territories and private prisons and like all of the companies and contacts at those places, and they'll write about it. So that's the best place. But otherwise, Bureau of Prisons, national statistics databases, even websites are now collecting it. Like there are a bunch of statistics websites that want you to pay for them, and you can find them there. And that's important.
I have a question, Trace. I have always been deeply concerned that prisons in the US are privatized, because it feels like the absolute last thing that needs to be privatized. How do they get paid? Does the government pay them per inmate or something?
I'm not an expert, but I would say probably. They probably do. I would assume it's a similar business model to schools. If someone in the chat knows, like you take an accounting every year, or every, an average per quarter or something, and you say, we had this many incarcerants, we had this many prisoners, please like give us funding based on that model. And the company probably negotiates with the government potentially. I think it could also be that the government is just giving a flat fee to this contractor, and that contractor says, we are going to manage all these prisons. But because it's privatized, it's not even necessarily per person. It's probably like, oh, this prisoner is in Texas, so our prison costs less than the prison in California, so they're actually getting less money per prisoner. But I don't know. Again, I'm making a number of assumptions to say that.
Sure.
But like private prisons also are very, like, it's really unnerving to think about the accountability alone for stuff like that is pretty nuts. No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
I kind of, if it's okay with you, Trace, I would love to go back to alcohol.
I'm drinking some right now.
Yeah, so the last time I joined SciComm Happy Hour, I was the only person not drinking, so I did make myself a drink for today.
It's 7 a.m. in Tokyo, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty hardcore.
Coffee?
It could be coffee. It could be vodka.
We'll never know.
It could be coffee with vodka.
It could be coffee with vodka.
It could be coffee flavored vodka.
Kill 2 birds with
Oh,
one
yum.
stone. It is Saturday, so
Anything goes.
How's Saturday going? Like it's Friday still, so it's
I know. Hello from the
how's
future. The future looks bright. Actually, no, it looks like it's pretty crappy weather out today. It was pretty. We're entering rainy season here in Japan. We actually entered it on Thursday, officially,
That's
and
very
that goes
specific.
Oh yeah. Like these are again, Japanese people like rules. A rainy season has to start on a day, and it has to end. No, there's like an actual ceremony of like when it ends. It's just like tomorrow it will end, and it ends.
Huh.
Yeah, meteorologists get really involved in this. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've seen like Sakura Maps. Have you guys, do you know what that is?
No, I have no idea. What is that?
Cherry blossom maps. So when
Wow.
yeah, when exactly the date the cherry blossom will bloom, how long they will bloom, and there's like a interactive map of how there are people who chase cherry blossoms across the country. And
Cherry blossom chasers.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have a name?
Wow.
Do they have like a special name?
No.
Like cherry chasers? Because here in the
US
US we've got
cherry chaser.
Here in the
Leafers?
US we've got leaf peepers, which is weird.
Leaf peepers.
Yeah,
That's
leaf
it.
peepers. That's a weird one.
Yeah, no, we can call them cherry chasers, but they start in the south and they go up north.
Have you ever done this?
Pictures. Oh God, no.
Well, it seems kind of fun.
No, I mean,
Vanessa's like, I want to do it, and Allie's like, oh God, no. And now Vanessa feels a little bad.
No, sorry, Vanessa. No, it's just because it's I get crowd anxiety, and there's a lot of people in these places.
Yeah,
I can imagine there's a lot of cameras.
Living in Washington D.C., cherry
cameras.
blossom season is a big deal. So like,
right?
So and it's
Yeah,
so
and they're
crowded
beautiful.
and crazy. And I've only done it. When I lived there. I only did it maybe once when I would go down there because it was just too crowded.
Why are there so many cherry blossoms in Washington D.C.?
I think they were a gift from Japan.
Yeah, they were gifted from Japan, right?
Yeah, they're beautiful, but they're also very crowded. And people are dumb. People like shake them and stuff so they get pictures of their kids with cherry blossom.
No.
I'm just like, what are you doing? You're ruining it for everybody.
Oh.
Anyway, you wanted to talk about alcohol, and I'm just complaining about stuff.
Yeah, no, it's a really short topic because it's not that I'm an expert in alcohol science or anything, but we did do a video recently on, I guess, science and history of why humans decided that alcohol was the thing we were going to drink. But no, I found it really, really interesting. Does anyone know what the first alcoholic beverage was that humans decided to consume?
Rice wine?
That's what I would guess.
I would guess beer.
Okay, great.
I would guess beer.
Yeah. So you are correct, Trace. Like it is beer. Or, like, of course, we don't know for sure, but they do assume it's beer. I was going to guess rice wine as well. But they did find a tomb in Israel that had traces of beer. So people being buried with beer from all the way like 14,000 years ago.
Wow.
That's how long humans have been drinking alcohol. However, they did find traces of ADH4, the enzyme that, breaks down alcohol, in bonobos, gorillas, chimpanzees, which all the way back to dated back to 10 million years ago. So I guess we've always had the ability to digest alcohol. But this I thought was really interesting. One of the theories on why we decided that we were going to, alcohol was something we were going to consume, is that fruits started dropping from trees. They would sit there, they would ferment, they would turn alcoholic, and we would eat those fruits instead of climbing these trees because we became tertiary animals. So,
because who wants to climb a tree if you can just eat some alcohol fruit on the ground?
Exactly.
In the dirt.
Exactly. So that's how we started consuming alcohol accidentally. We liked how it felt, and now here we are with all these different arrays of alcoholic beverages that we like to consume for fun.
I love how you started that off, where you said when did we decide that we were going to start drinking alcohol? Because I was just imagining there was just like one woman who was just sitting there in a fancy hat who said, now we will begin.
We will begin consuming alcohol.
It starts today.
And then everybody went,
All right.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, it's like who decided that we were going to drink cow's milk, for instance? Like, you know, like I have so many questions about things that we decided to consume as a society. Like, of course, with alcohol, when you do the research, like it's a lot more scientific than you assume, of this lady in a big hat and just like a long cigarette and be like, today we will consume alcohol. But no, it's not. It wasn't.
She
like
definitely
that,
has a long cigarette.
yeah, she does.
I hadn't thought of that
holder,
detail, but it makes
like a cigarette holder for sure.
Yeah,
it makes so much sense.
She's basically Cruella de Vil, but like the good version, like Cruella's sister who's not evil.
Something that you may not know is that cigarette holder was the first tool that humans ever invented.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. Science. That's some science right there.
Yeah.
Isn't this the drunk monkey hypothesis? I feel like I remember it. It came to mind while you were talking because it's
an excellent name for it.
It just sounds like a good name, and it just stuck in my craw, but in a nice way, not in a bad way.
Yeah, it's like there was a drunk monkey, and then I think a monkey got drunk after eating a fermented apple
fruit.
or something.
Yeah.
The fruit. Yeah.
No, we're just so like, let's keep doing that. So,
do you think that the apples in the Garden of Eden were fermented? Throwing it out there.
So, like, you're telling me that Eve also owned a hat and a cigarette holder.
What if she was drunk the whole time?
And she was just like,
this could be true.
So hungry right now.
She's sitting there and she's like, I came from the rib. Fuck this shit.
Yeah. And she was like, I need a drink.
See, in that case, I feel like she's probably like, if Adam says one more time that I'm just a rib, I'm going to eat that apple.
Everything makes so much sense now. Oh, also, we were talking about...
This is purely speculative. If anyone has joined recently, this is not based on fact, even though this is a science communication happy hour. We're at the happier end of the hour, and there's all kinds of theories being espoused.
Yes.
Not even theories. I would just call them research
questions.
Hypotheses.
Not even a word.
Hypotheses.
Allie, I cut you off. Sorry. You were
also
talking about something else.
No, I was just going to add that, I think this is pretty obvious, but people drink, you drink beer for the first time when you're 21. And you usually don't like the taste. But why is it that after a certain age, we decide that, hey, beer is actually really good, or I like the taste of it? And I thought there was going to be this like great science behind it of like this psychological or socioeconomical reason, or like, I don't know what I was expecting. But when I did the research, it was just kind of like, no, your tongue just decides that it's like, it's okay now. Like it's just
actually
like,
your tongue that decides.
Yeah.
I think that is fascinating in and of itself.
It's just like, because as you get older, you start to eat all the foods that you didn't like as a child. Same reason.
Yeah, at some point your tongue just kind of changes.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's a little anticlimactic.
Yeah, a little bit. But
how was the conclusion of your video? Did you feel like the video that you made was a little anticlimactic as well?
No, I mean, it was still interesting because I don't think anyone's really asked the question like what lady in the big hat and the long cigarette decided that we were going to drink alcohol one day. So we talk about why we drink alcohol. Yeah, but we have, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone knows why we drink alcohol or why we continue to consume it, but no one's really done a whole 20-minute video on why.
Yeah.
On why, like, who decided that it was going to be a thing.
And where can we find this video? Because I would like to watch it after.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I'm going to look it up now and add it to my watch later playlist, which I use religiously.
It is all in Japanese. So
Yeah,
you're
but
gonna
does
have
it
to
have
do the,
English captions?
it doesn't. I mean, you could try the auto translate feature. I'm not sure how good it is because the Japanese captions are locked in. Like those are really good captions. So you could probably use the auto translate feature. But does YouTube even have that anymore? Actually,
I don't think so, because there's a German YouTuber who I found, who I will say I quite like her videos, but they're completely in German and there's no English captions. But I mean, from the images that she uses and things, I can kind of like gauge what she's speaking about, but I wouldn't watch more than a couple of minutes of that.
Okay.
But still,
well, I mean,
how
if
can
you,
we find
if you
it?
still want to, you just look
I'm
up
in.
Discovery Channel Japan.
Okay.
Discovery Channel Japan is the YouTube channel, and the show is called BOBAK, not to be confused with a popular SNL skit featuring Justin Timberlake. So many jokes would be made about it, but it is for like a Discovery Imagination Box is what it stands for. So BOBAK, Discovery Channel Japan, and like alcohol.
That's so funny. And so what do you, this is a question that people used to ask me all the time, and I've never been able to ask somebody else because I've never been, I don't know. I don't ask that many people, but what's the favorite video you ever made, Allie?
Oh, God.
It's the worst question, but it's a common one.
Oh, my goodness. You're asking both of us, right?
I mean, I want to hear yours first, but I also want to know what Vanessa's is. But I'm pretty sure it's the one that she's made most recently about sleeping with friends.
I mean, I could be a good media producer and say my favorite video is the next video I'm going to be producing.
It's Trace's favorite sound for this live stream.
It is, yeah.
But, oh my goodness. I did do a video, and this is going to tie in with the pepper spray, actually, on the science of spicy food. Yeah. And like why certain people can tolerate spice and why people can't.
Does your tongue decide?
Kind of. But no, the conclusion to that was it's a form of masochism. It was the conclusion to that. So I thought it was going to be a lot more like biology, but it's actually a lot more psychological because it is like a sort of thrill factor of, hey, I'm suffering, but I'm not going to die. And people who like spicy food, myself included, like that sense of thrill, I guess, was the conclusion that we found. And I really like that. I also ate a lot of spicy food in that video. And it's kind of fun to watch myself suffer, I guess.
I do love spicy food. I do.
Yeah, spicy food is the best.
I do a talk sometimes when I've been invited to do it. I have done talk a couple of times on why we have spicy butt. Like, why is it that when you eat spicy food, your poop is spicy? Like, does your butt have taste receptors?
I have never experienced this.
What?
What?
Is this something that's common?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And wait, what did you find? What did you find the conclusion to that was?
So it's the talk is really fun, and if anybody in the chat wants to hire me to do the talk, I'd love to do it. But the basic idea is the capsaicin that is in spicy food is a molecule that binds with molecules in our own bodies. So our taste buds actually believe that we are on fire. That's why you sweat and you can vomit and all these other things can happen to you if you eat very spicy food, because your body is going into shock. It's essentially like, I am dying, and it's, like consciously you're not dying, but your body is too stupid and doesn't know that. So the capsaicin affects your body as if you're actually on fire. And those binding points exist everywhere on your body. There are less of them in places like on the back of your arms. So if you like drop spicy oil on your arm, it will react as if it is burned, but you won't necessarily feel like I'm on fire. But because there are mucous membranes here, This is why
That's
it happens.
the word of the day, the term
Mucous
of the
membrane.
day, mucous
I know.
membrane.
Yep. And
Yeah.
the spicy butt is the same. It's like your skin there is very sensitive. And so because it's sensitive, the capsaicin that is still in the food that is now coming out the other end of your worm bodies is binding with the skin on the outside of your body. It's fascinating. It's fascinating and weird and gross. And I use a lot of emojis in the talks and try and keep it as like not as graphic as possible. It's really fun. It's a fun one. And I can't believe you've never experienced it, Vanessa. Like, I'm kind of upset for you. You need to go out and eat a bunch of spicy food.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's something wrong with my butt.
Do you not eat spicy food?
I do eat spicy food. I will say I don't like it super spicy. Like I would super spicy. I would be more of a medium spice. Like sometimes I do mild, sometimes I do a step up from mild and medium at a Thai or Vietnamese restaurant, but I'm not a crazy spice fan.
Yeah.
Oh.
My brother Evan is this crazy spice person. He'll like,
but it actually depends
orange.
on what the spice is, I will say, because if I'm eating Thai or Vietnamese food, like is it like a green papaya salad? It's always like so spicy, and I don't like that type of spice, but I love horseradish. So I will put a whole thing of wasabi on a piece of sushi because I love that, like it like clears out your nose, like that kind of horseradish spice, but I'm not so much into like a jalapeno.
I wonder if those are different. I honestly didn't look.
They are. They actually are. We cover that in the video. There's just two types of spicy, and it's called, well, hot spicy and cool spicy. And horseradish, wasabi, all of those are in the cool section. So usually if you're good at one type of spice, you're usually not very good in the other, which is the case for me as well.
I love wasabi. I love it. And I also love spicy food. So I'm a spicy super person, I guess.
I guess you are.
Super spicy.
You're the anomaly. Vanessa, I want to know what your favorite video is.
Yeah.
So I have two. So I just did a YouTube original series, which has been very different to any other video that I've made because it had a huge team that worked on it and over a longer time frame, and it was a different format, and it was just so fun. So I have a number of things. So that is probably, I would say, my favorite. I have a documentary that I made on designer DNA 3 years ago now that's called Mutant Menu. And it was the first long form piece of content that I'd ever made. And that also, I traveled around the world for it. And that was a very personal experience. So but just of a normal short YouTube video that I've made, I pasted the link in the chat. And the video is called Your Brain in Numbers. And it's basically just a whole bunch of facts about your brain, but I animated the whole thing in stop motion. And it's just a very pretty video. And I made it like 4 years ago, but I'm still very proud of the animation that I did for it. And I think it's super fun.
Huh.
Yeah, it's not as good of a piece of communication for like having impact as some of those other things that I mentioned, but I really like it.
I don't have a favorite video.
Wow. What about this one?
What?
The video that I just released. I mean, the most recent video.
This live stream
is my favorite video. No, I mean, like, there's so many, I've made so many videos. Vanessa likes to embarrass me and make me tell everyone all the time. Like, anytime we're on a talk together.
I'm proud of you.
Anytime we're on a talk, she's like, Trace, can you tell everyone how many videos you've made? Like, non-sequitur.
And I lean into the microphone.
I've made so many. I've made over 1,000 videos, probably over 2,000 videos. And it's just like, so remembering one that stands out, it's more like I remember a handful of videos that are all really good, but I don't have like one favorite. And like I loved going to the Arctic Circle. I loved doing things like talking about why we do certain things, like why spiciness works, why when we drink alcohol things happen. I got to fly in a fighter jet once. That was really cool.
Wow.
They let me keep the flight suit because I vomited on it, so that was cool. You know, like, I don't know. I like the experience of making videos almost more than the videos themselves, if that's anything.
So it makes sense. I mean, when you're a creative, the process of creation is something that you get a lot out of.
Yes, for sure. Like, I love releasing a video and I love replying to comments and talking to people about it. But after like a year, I'm kind of over it. I'm like, okay, I don't want to think about that video anymore, because I look back at even videos that I was super proud of when I released. I'm now like, ugh, that could have been so much better.
I know. Yeah. I have the same experience, and something that I very much dislike on what you were saying about having done so many videos is when someone's like, Vanessa, you know, in this one video that you made about this one thing, when you said this, what did you mean exactly? And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, and what did you mean, Vanessa?
I'm just imagining
and I just
whoever
have no
was
idea.
asking
Like, it
that.
was 4 years ago, and I've made like 150 videos since then. I have no idea. Yeah, it's normally at like conferences on panels or things like that. I actually do this guest lecture in science communication every year at the school where I did my master's degree, and the students have such precise questions, and they were like, when you made this decision, what was the reasoning behind it? And I'm like, I had an hour until my deadline and I needed to make a decision. And that was the one that I decided to make.
Honestly, I was listening for a while. I haven't been listening to podcasts since we've been locked in. I don't know if that's the same anybody else, but like, I used to listen to the Empire podcast, and they had a 3 or 4 hour one after Endgame. And they're always, with Marvel, people are so excited to like ask people questions about why we did this, why we did that. And they answered a few of those, and they're like, when you're on set and something breaks or something doesn't work or the script is like, doesn't make sense, you make a decision, you do the thing, and then you move on. So you and the Russo brothers are exactly the same in that way, Vanessa. You make a creative decision in the moment, and that results in something
well
amazing.
I think that because, and that is one of the benefits of like going to university and doing advanced degrees and having training and life experience, is that your instincts are quite refined. So often your brain doesn't go through the process of like weighing the pros and cons and thinking about the decision. You're just like, do that, and that is what we want to do.
Yeah. All right, well, we've wasted a perfectly good hour talking about all sorts of stuff, really cool stuff. I do want Lab Potato in the chat asks one question that I would like to
great name.
because it's a great name. Yeah. They wanted to know the biggest disconnect, and I'm going to add in that we believe is the biggest disconnect between the scientific community and the general public. It's a good question.
That's a really good question.
I'm going to start that by saying it's language that people use, because often in science communication, for example, scientists will say that they have a significant finding, and the public don't understand what statistical significance is, and they think they're just using the word like in conversation, and they're just like very like important finding or something like that. So there's a lot of examples like that where the language doesn't actually translate. And even as science communicators, sometimes we get so caught up in the scientific language of things that sometimes we will use the word like significant or other words that have very loaded meaning in science that don't in the general public.
That's a great answer. That's a really good answer. It made me think of like, and I know this is weird, but it made me think of like when religious teachings were all done in Latin. And so people understood some things but didn't understand everything. And then they had scholars that would like come and explain to you. It's almost like science does have its own language, and it's just the same language that a science communicator might speak or that a layman might speak. And those people can all be saying the same things and all mean something different, which is really, I think that is spot on. What do you think, Allie?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very similar, but I would say it's information flexibility. And what I mean by that is, with the general public, I think we like to be told what to do or what to think, or, you know, like it is A or B, it is black or white. And with the scientific community, I think we're a lot more curious, nothing is really black and white. There's much more information out there. Even if one study says something, there's another study that negates it. So I think in the science community, we're constantly looking for information, and that's why whenever we find something to be true, we know that it's like 85% true, and there could be more to the story, as opposed to when I say, I'm generalizing when I say general public, but sometimes it's like, okay, well, this news outlet said this, so it is this. But I think within the science community, there's a lot more flexibility.
That's another good point. And it's almost
I think that's a really good point, because Trace and I will just talk over each other forever. I was going to say, I think it's a really good point, because it leads to a lot of distrust in science, actually, where people were like, well, last year you said this and now you're saying this. Like, how many glasses of water a day do I actually need to drink? You know, so
yeah. I think of eggs for that same reason. It's something that my parents still complain about. They'll like eat eggs every meal and they'll be like, yeah, it's fine, right? Because they used to say they were bad and now they say they're good, and then they said they were bad again. And that commonly comes down to like, it was, there are competing agendas, there's competing language, there, you know, like a lot of us in the US, and I know, Allie, you live in Japan, but you also used to live in the US, so you might remember the Other White Meat campaign that was pork, the other white meat, and the idea being it's not a red meat, it's a white meat, because there was a push against Americans eating red meat, but the Pork Growers Association said, let's make pork a white meat, but red meat is mammalian meat, and pork's are mammal, pork's a mammal, so that you can't eat it. Anyway. You get my point. It's fascinating because there are competing agendas that only muddy the waters of what is the kind of waters in between science and the general public. So the disconnect, to answer your question, lab potato, is humans are complicated. And
the disconnect is the moat of muddy waters that exist between the ivory tower and then the general public.
Let's just knock down the ivory tower into the muddy water and build a new ivory tower on the other side.
Build a tiny house.
Yeah, build a number of small, colorful abodes that we can all visit, and it would be lovely.
It's just a shipping container community of professors.
I would live there. I bet you it'd be nice.
Yeah.
All right.
And that is why marketeers make so much money.
Thank you, Cirillo, for that. Thank you. All right. So with that, I would love y'all to plug something and tell people where they can come and find you, and then we will let everyone enjoy the rest of their Friday, or in Allie's case, their early Saturday. And also, there are people in the chat from New Zealand, so early Saturday morning to you.
So I assume that everyone here already subscribes to my YouTube channel, Braincraft, which is youtube.com/Braincraft. So I'm going to use this time to plug something new, which is my TikTok account, which is on TikTok, which is also just Braincraft, one word. Wow. Please go follow me there.
Awesome. Okay. Well, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to see kind of the sciencey videos, although they are all in Japanese, you can search Discovery Channel Japan and look for the show BOBAK. However, if you are interested in knowing more about me, I am very active on Instagram, and I do a series of ridiculous inspired by posts on there where I take a video. Oh, hello.
It's BOBAK.
Hi, everybody.
Wow, we're just trying to wrap up.
We're trying to wrap up here, BOBAK.
No, wrap up.
Welcome.
He just comes in at the stage where we're plugging things. And he's like, well, now that you're here,
he's like, oh, are we plugging things? Let me just lean in.
I was just about to get to my point.
Please plug. No, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. I was... No, I was just saying that I do have an Instagram account where I mimic cute animals and I recreate. So I love, one of my obsessions on Instagram is cute dogs dressed up in cute clothing. So I want to be just as pretty as one of those dogs. So I like to recreate those pictures in human form, and that's what I do on Instagram. I'm a weird person, man. I just realized. But if you would like to follow me there, I will put my handle in the chat, but it's 4 letters.
Please do. I really want to follow you.
And W on Instagram. And yeah, that's me.
What does your name mean?
So the short answer is I usually like to say extra small ninja warrior, but that's not really. It was like an AOL handle name that I made when I was 14, putting in like snowboarding and like cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I made in like the early 2000s, late 90s.
Mine was I like chicken 3, so I like yours better. I like yours better.
Yeah, but I mean, I still use mine, which is horrible.
No, it's great because you can make it mean whatever you want.
That's true.
BOBAK, welcome. Welcome to
Hi.
the end of the stream. How was your meeting?
It was long.
Yeah.
I got more action items. That's the way meetings go.
Wow. Some KPIs. What is that? KPIs?
Oh yeah, lots of KPIs.
So many KPIs. That's what Flavia, my fiance Flavia, mentions KPIs all the time. OKRs?
Yeah.
OKRs?
Oh, a lot of
OKRs.
OKRs in my house. Yeah.
So many OKRs.
Oh
Yeah,
God, corporate.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, welcome, BOBAK. We're about to end, so thanks for
Perfect.
watching, everybody. Hi, BOBAK, and bye, everyone else. See you next time on SciComm Happy Hour. Please subscribe. I'm Trace. Bye.
Bye.